Hi kids, and welcome to Disney Animation Reviews. I'm Josiah Milky,
And I'm Jordan Milky.
and today we continue our stroll down memory lane of the Disney Renaissance era with what most people consider the classic animated Disney feature film. Disney's 30th animated feature film classic, Beauty and the Beast. Based off the classic fairy tale, this film was first released to theaters for Thanksgiving 1991. Not much else came out from Disney that year that's memorable. The only other stuff I can think of from 91 that was big that year was the live-action film The Rocketeer, which didn't do so good at the box office, and reviews were only so-so. There was the animated TV series Darkwing Duck, which we haven't seen it, but we've listened to the theme song. It's actually pretty catchy.
Yeah.
And then for Christmas 1991, they had the TV special Winnie the Pooh and Christmas 2. We used to own that one on home video. But today we're talking about Beauty and the Beast. The film was a big box office hit. While Little Mermaid was the film that started the Disney Renaissance era, Beauty and the Beast was the one that really started kicking it off. And because it was the first animated feature film to make over $100 million in America, and went on to gross $425 million worldwide. It got really good reviews, and it received several Oscar nominations. 6 to be exact, in 4 different categories, because one of them, 3 of those Oscars were in the same category.
Right.
Including the first Oscar nomination in history for an animated feature film for Best Picture.
Oh.
It didn't win. Silence of the Lambs took home that honor. But it was still very successful. We'll talk more about its other Oscars when we get to later in the review. But for now, let's talk about the plot of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. So, through some opening narration provided by the recently deceased David Ogden Stiers, and through mostly stained glass windows.
Which, by the way, love the design of the windows.
Very nice. So through the narration and the stained glass windows, we get our opening prologue about a young prince who lives in a nice castle, but is selfish and unkind despite having everything he ever wanted. One night, an old beggar woman comes to the castle, offering him a single rose in return for shelter from the cold, but he refuses to let her in. But it turns out she's actually an enchantress who punishes the prince by turning him into a beast and placing a spell on his castle. The rose she gives him, even though he didn't want it, is actually an enchanted rose that will bloom until his 21st year. Later on in the film, during the Be Our Guest, Lumiere states for 10 years they've been rusting. So if the enchantress says the rose will bloom until his 21st year, and Lumiere says they've been rusting for stuck in their enchanted state for 10 years, that means the beast was 11 when he was cursed.
That's weird.
That sounds like a bit rough for a kid, but whatever. Anyway, all problems like that aside, the beast has to learn to love another and earn her love in return before the last petal falls from the rose, if he ever wants to break the spell.
About 10 years later, we get to meet our main heroine, Belle.
Belle lives in a small French village with her father Maurice, an inventor. Although Belle does have dreams like Ariel, she's also more down to earth, as she doesn't care too much. She doesn't show it in town when other people call her weird or crazy because she likes to read books. It's only when she comes home to her father, Maurice, that she lets her worries out. We also, during the beginning of the film, get to meet the hunter Gaston, who wants to marry Belle because she's apparently the most beautiful girl in the village, but Belle's the only woman that doesn't have any interest in him because she thinks he's too arrogant and unworthy of marriage.
To Belle, Gaston is just primeval.
Which Gaston doesn't understand what that means. He thought she was complimenting him. Maurice takes a woodchopping invention he and Belle finished together to the fair, hoping he'll win first prize so he can make a better life for the two of them. But he accidentally gets lost and winds up at the Beast's castle, where he's taken in by the enchanted objects, Lumiere the candelabra, Cosworth the clock, Mrs. Potts the teapot, and her son Chip the teacup. But the Beast imprisons Maurice for showing up uninvited, which then leads Maurice's horse, Philippe, to go back to get Belle, and she sets off to save him. And one thing I like about Belle is that she doesn't give a second thought for her own safety. Her father is the most important person in the village to her, and she's willing to take his place as the Beast's prisoner so that Maurice will go free.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that Belle doesn't have a mother.
Right, like Ariel, Belle is one of many Disney princesses that only has the dad around. The Beast lets Maurice go, and Belle promises to stay in the castle forever. She befriends the enchanted objects, but at first wants nothing to do with the Beast until after he saves her from some wolves, and they slowly start to trust each other. Before becoming friends with the Beast, Belle does make friends with the enchanted objects. From her knowledge of books, she's actually pretty smart for her age, as she was able to figure out the castle was enchanted with all the different objects.
Mm-hmm.
Although, one thing that my friend Rachel Wagner pointed out when she reviewed this film is how many servants work at this castle. Because during the song Be Our Guest, there's a whole bunch of dancing plates and napkins and silverware.
Yeah.
If all of those things were actual servants, there would probably be like 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 servants at this castle.
Yeah.
And if so, how does the Beast employ them all?
And the real question is, how long is Belle at the castle? Because it feels like only a few days that she's there.
But it's winter, and it's never truly stated how long she and the Beast stay together. But as time passes, they start to trust each other and fall in love with each other. And of course, we get the iconic title song, Beauty and the Beast, sung by Mrs. Potts, while Belle and the Beast dance via some beautiful animation that was helped along by computers. And I know, because I watched the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right.
One thing I like about Beauty and the Beast is the voice cast. Disney's always been really good at delivering great vocal performances, and Beauty and the Beast is no exception. You've got Paige O'Hara as Belle, Robbie Benson as the Beast, Richard White as Gaston, Jerry Orbach as Lumiere, David Ogden Stiers as Cogsworth, and Angela Lansbury as Mrs. Potts.
Before this, she was the star of Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
That's right. So you've got those actors along with numerous other actors. The Enchanted Objects are probably my favorite characters. I'd have to say I'm probably tied between Lumiere and Mrs. Potts and Chip for my most favorite, but all the Enchanted Objects are fantastic sidekicks. And they're not just sidekicks, they actually help the story along, like Sebastian did in The Little Mermaid, and like the genie would do later in Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
I also really love the music. First off, the filmmakers, originally the film was going to be a non-musical and was going to be directed by Richard Purdom, but then after the first couple drafts, Jeffrey Katzenberg said, no, let's do a musical like we did for Little Mermaid, and Purdom got kicked out of the film. Making their directing debuts on the film were Disney story guys Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, who went on to direct Hunchback of Notre Dame and Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
And now Gary works at DreamWorks Animation, where he directed the Madagascar Penguins and a Christmas Caper short film, and the TV specials Shrek the Halls and Scared Shrekless. The producer of Beauty and the Beast is Don Hahn, who went on to produce Gary and Kirk's other Disney films, as well as The Lion King. Now Don is an executive producer on live-action Disney films, particularly the Disney nature ones. Walt Disney himself had actually wanted to do Beauty and the Beast in the 30s and 50s, but ended up putting it off in favor of other ideas. And so it wasn't until the late 80s that this film actually started production. Aside from Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise directing and Don Hahn producing, you can't talk about Beauty and the Beast's filmmakers without mentioning the songwriters. Alan Menken did the score, and he and Howard Ashman did the songs, having just come off their Oscar-winning success for their music in The Little Mermaid.
Yep.
And the songs are great. You've got the opening song, Belle, which talks about Belle and her desire to escape her town, her poor provincial town, and the small, ordinary life she lives. My personal favorite, Be Our Guest, during the fantastic dinner time sequence. Obviously, the title song, sung by Mrs. Potts, and a few others that are also really good, but not as good as the ones I just mentioned.
One notable song that was written for the film but dropped, but eventually put back into the musical, was Human Again.
Right, where those enchanted objects sing about their desire to be human again. They thought about doing it in the movie, but it was coming right after Something There, the song Belle and the Beast singing their heads together when they're playing in the snow.
Mm.
They thought that having two songs back-to-back was a bit much, And so they cut it from the movie, but they put it back in for the musical, and it was so successful in the musical that when the film got released on DVD for the first time in 2002, they put the song Human Again back into the movie, with original animators and original voice cast.
Well, the animation on that song might not be as good as the animation for the rest of the film.
It's still a pretty good song. I think my favorite parts of this movie are the enchanted objects, the song Be Our Guest, and the climactic battle between the villagers and the enchanted objects. As Rachel Wagner says, very Home Alone-ish.
I agree.
One thing I like about Gaston, the villain, is that he doesn't seem like the villain at first. At first he just seems kind of self-absorbed. It's later his jealousy takes a dangerous turn, and he ends up leading the villagers to try and kill the beast.
But one thing I like about Belle, though, is she's not afraid to speak her mind, and I like how it's not a complete love at first sight deal like Little Mermaid.
Right.
It takes time for Belle and the Beast to trust and fall in love.
Exactly. Spoiler alert, so if you don't want any big spoilers, you should probably skip this part over. But one thing that a lot of people complain about is the Beast's human form at the end. The filmmakers themselves were worried that after the Beast became human again at the end, that kids weren't going to respond to the character like they had when he was a beast. But I have to remind people, the goal of the film was to get the Beast to love and be loved so that he could become human again. And honestly, you feel, if you watch the movie, that the Beast deserves his transformation. Because he learns to love, and Belle learns to love him in return. And that's what breaks the spell.
Yep. And that's what helps Belle and the Beast to be together.
Mm-hmm. Beauty and the Beast, like I said, was a box office and critical success, and was nominated for 6 Oscars in 4 categories. Like Little Mermaid, it won 2 Oscars for its music. Best Score and Best Original Song for the song Beauty and the Beast, with additional Best Song nominations for Be Our Guest and the opening song Belle, a nomination for Best Sound, and like I said, it was the first animated feature film in history to be nominated for Best Picture, and the only one for years until Pixar's Up and Toy Story 3. And although Little Mermaid was the first one nominated, Beauty and the Beast was the first animated feature film to win the Golden Globe Award for Best Picture, later followed by The Lion King and Toy Story 2.
Oh.
While Beauty and the Beast isn't my personal favorite of the Fab Four of the Disney Renaissance era, because I feel like I can only respond to the Beast once he has his turnaround in the second half of the movie, I can see why other people like it, and I can definitely recommend this movie for others. Beauty and the Beast started as a franchise. Well, first off, it's the first Disney feature film to spawn a Broadway musical, which debuted in spring of 1994. And although it initially got mixed reviews from critics, audiences loved it.
Yeah, I agree.
The musical received 9 Tony Award nominations and won one for Best Costume Design.
Oh.
There are obviously changes to the musical. For instance, Belle's horse, Philippe, is cut. Chip's role is reduced because it's hard to make Chip believable on stage. And there's obviously a bunch of new songs, including one for the Beast, finally, If I Can't Love Her.
And a new one for Belle, Home.
Because remember, with If I Can't Love Her, previously the only time the Beast sang in the movie was in his head during the song Something There, which he sang with Belle.
Right.
But in the musical, he gets his own song. Beauty and the Beast also, in the mid to late 90s, had a live-action TV series called Sing Me a Story with Belle, where a live-action Belle helps kids out by telling them stories of classic animated Disney shorts like The 3 Little Pigs and Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree.
Huh.
Beauty and the Beast also had 2 direct-to-video midquels. The better one of the 2 is Beauty and the Beast The Enchanted Christmas, released in fall of 1997. Taking place during The Curse, Belle tries to bring Christmas back to the castle, even though we find out it was Christmas Eve all those years ago that the prince got transformed into the Beast. But with the help of the enchanted objects, Belle tries to help the Beast realize the spirit of Christmas. Featuring mostly the original voice cast, Chip is recast because his voice actor was all grown up by that point. And they've got some new characters. Forte, the evil pipe organ, voiced by the master of villain character voices, Tim Curry.
And Angelique, a tree ornament who is the castle decorator, voiced by famous singer and actress Bernadette Peters.
That's right. The other direct-to-video midquel was Belle's Magical World, released directly to video in mid-February of 1998. This one's a storybook adventure featuring 3 more of Belle's stories from her time with the Beast and his servants. A 4th one was added for the special edition DVD release. That one, you can skip. I saw it once, and once was enough.
Okay.
Beauty and the Beast also, if anyone's following with today's Disney media, they'll know that a live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast, directed by Bill Condon from the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn films, was released to theaters last year. This one was a huge box office success, making over $1 billion worldwide. Its reviews were pretty good, but not as highly rated as the animated version. And it was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Production Design and Best Costume Design. Rightfully so on costume design, because the costumes in this film are great. Belle's yellow ball gown in the live-action remake has to be my favorite.
Yep. Some of the upsides were the costuming, the music, and the acting was pretty good.
The acting was okay. You've got people like Emma Watson and Dan Stevens leading the humans, and then you've got people like Ewan McGregor, Ian McKellen, and Emma Thompson doing the voices of the enchanted objects. And the musical numbers, the staging of the musical numbers, particularly the Gaston song and Be Our Guest, the choreography was awesome. Some of the downsides are the film is much longer than the animated version, and thus it can drag the film down a bit. Some of the characters aren't played to their strengths. Mrs. Potts and Chip's roles are seriously downgraded in this one. And the new songs, they have the old songs by Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, but they also have 3 new songs by Menken and his songwriting buddy Tim Rice from Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. The new songs are okay, but they're nothing special, except for the Beast song, Evermore.
I like this version's take on If I Can't Love Her.
So, I don't know. It's probably too scary for little kids, but I don't know, I guess it depends on the age.
And Belle's also a guest star on Sophia the First.
That's right. It was the episode The Amulet and the Anthem,
where Sophia got chosen to sing the Enchantian anthem, but she bragged about it too much and her amulet cursed her.
By making her croak like a frog, and so her amulet called on Belle to help her figure out how to break her croaking curse.
And Belle helps her out with her new song, Make It Right, where she tells Sophia about the Beast, and how he needed to learn to love her and be loved in return, so his curse could be broken.
Exactly.
Belle is also set to appear in Ralph Breaks the Internet with her fellow princesses.
Along with the rest of the Disney princesses, which leads to another question I have. When they're quizzing Penelope, Belle asks if she was kidnapped or enslaved.
Alongside Rapunzel.
Belle was not kidnapped or enslaved. She chose to take her father's place in the Beast's castle. So that might stir up some controversy, but I guess if you know the Disney princesses, it's not too big an issue. Beauty and the Beast, the animated film's latest home video release, was its 25th anniversary Walt Disney Signature Collection release on Blu-ray and digital in fall of 2016. About 6 months, half a year, before the live-action film hit theaters. There are 3 versions of the movie you can watch here. You can watch the original theatrical release, you can watch the special edition with the song Human Again, and you can watch the new Sail-On version. The only bonus feature plucked from previous home video releases is an audio commentary by the filmmakers. For new bonus features, there's a few featurettes on recording sessions, one in particular where Paige O'Hara reflects on doing the voice of Belle. There's a Fun Facts featurette hosted by a couple of Disney Channel stars. There's number 1074, Walt, Fairy Tales, and Beauty and the Beast, which talks about when Walt tried to adapt the story. There's Menken and Friends, 25 Years of Musical Inspiration, where Alan Menken and other Disney songwriters and composers talk about the music, and how Menken's music has influenced these other Disney songwriters and composers on their films. And there's a sneak peek at the live-action Beauty and the Beast. So that's our thoughts on the animated Beauty and the Beast. I'll end on a sorrowful note. Along with Aladdin, this was the last animated Disney film that songwriter Howard Ashman worked on. He died several months before it was released, and so the film was dedicated to him. He shall forever be remembered in the Disney legacy. We still miss you, Howard Ashman. Rest in peace. And for everyone who hasn't seen Beauty and the Beast at all or in a while, definitely check it out. Well, we're out of time for today, so remember, when you wish upon a star,
your dreams come true.
Goodbye! Goodbye!